Hello, everybody. I'm here today with Jerry Leitner. He is a longtime coach, head coach, assistant coach, and AD in the Erie, PA area. How you doing today, Coach?
Good, real good.
Good.
Great day.
Glad to have you here. Thanks for taking some of your time to be here today.
Thanks for asking me, Mo.
Yep. So let's start off talking about where you grew up, what city, the state, maybe a little bit about the neighborhood you grew up in.
I grew up in Erie. On the east side, when I was born, we lived in the Roger Young Projects off of Buffalo Road, right across from Burton School. And then we moved up to Prospect Avenue, and that's where my parents had they bought a house and stayed there forever and ever. All five of us, there were 5 kids in our family. We all went to Burton School. We went to 3 different high schools, lived in the same house. I had 2 that went to Academy, 2 that went to East. I went to Tech. It was a great neighborhood. The older siblings were really happy to get out of the projects. It just had more room. We had a big yard, and you know, Mom had a garden. Dad worked at GE and was there for like 42 years, and Mom stayed home and took care of all of us. And then when we were gone, she ended up working at the Erie School District as a librarian, teacher aide librarian, and yeah, it was great. It was a great life growing up there.
Yeah. So explain this to me again. So across the street from Burton School, where the pool is, used to be houses?
Yeah, they were rows. They were Roger Young. I'm sure my older brother knows what they were named after. He was some kind of architect that had this housing, but I think it was for the veterans, or it was for the guys for people to stay in during the war, like the Franklin Terrace was.
Okay. Yep.
To work at GE.
Right.
GE was huge. And they were rows, and they went from north and south, and they were parallel to Downing Avenue. And we lived at 1908 B Drive, which would have went Downing Avenue, A Drive, B Drive, all the way over. It was loaded with kids. My older brothers constantly see names and say things like, "Oh yeah, they live down the street." My sister's same way. You know, we lived next to them in the projects, and it was. I loved going down the projects even when we moved out because there were 1,000 kids. I mean, we would have football games sometimes and it'd be 20 on 20.
Right.
It was unbelievable, and there was a big yard in the middle of the commons of the projects, and you know, we went to Burton, and a lot of the kids at Burton lived in the project, so you know, we were always hanging out.
Right. So how did you get into sports?
Well, my father was a local referee, umpire. My father was an athlete, very good athlete. After the war, he came back and played at Slippery Rock, and then life got in the way, and he came up here and worked at GE. But my older brothers were athletes. Actually, my sister's the one that taught us how to play catch, how to play baseball, because my brothers were too busy playing ball. So it was like the natural thing to do in my family. Just started playing. We started playing Little League and basketball, and then when you got old enough to play football, you went ahead and did that. My 2 older brothers played football. One played at Academy, one played at East.
Okay.
My younger brother played at East. I played at Tech. So basically, it was what you did in our household.
Right. So when you went to Tech, what sports did you play at Tech?
I did some track, but mostly it was just football. We were working 3 days a week. We only went to school 3 days a week. And so
was that the Twin Tech?
Yeah,
okay.
That's when they started Twin Tech. I was the first class. I was in 9th grade. And the reason that I ended up at Tech is Burton School, because the federal government came in the 70s and said we had to integrate the West Side schools that didn't have as many minority kids in it. We had a lot of minority kids at Burton. I got bused to Roosevelt. So they brought us
for middle school?
For middle school. And back then it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade at Roosevelt. So they brought us all in, all the Burton kids, and had us in the auditorium and said, okay, you're in 8th grade now. You're going to be in 9th grade. The kids from Burton are going to go to Strong Vincent High School. And I remember laughing to myself, and Jerry Carr was there. Jerry Carr and I went all the way from kindergarten till we graduated together, ended up playing next to each other in high school.
Right.
We didn't even know where Strong Vincent High School was. And that's not a joke. I mean, we're like, where is that? Yeah. And then they said, but we have this thing going on called Twin Tech. And they all said, you know, you go to school 3 days a week, and we all went, yeah, sign me up. 3 days a week. Right. I know where Tech is. That's where Freddie Blitnikoff went to school, so everybody sort of knew where that was. Right. So that's how we ended up going to Tech.
So there were guys, you were still living on the east side, but they were going to bus you to Strong Vincent to go to high school.
Yes.
Wow.
And there were kids that went to Burton I remember Clayton Carruthers had a really good career at Vincent, and he went to Burton with us, and there were other kids that did the same, and you know, decided not to go to Tech and went to
They
Vincent.
went to Vincent. Okay.
Lived over across from Burton School, but went to Strong Vincent.
Right, right. What positions did you play in high school?
I played offensive line and some linebacker.
Okay, all right. So going back to your parents, anything that you learned from your parents that you still carry on today, like any lessons or any?
You know, my mom was a very, very intelligent woman. You know, I still read a lot, and that's because of her. She was a big reader. She was such a sweet woman. My dad, he taught us, you know, you get up every day, go to work. And he went to work every day, 42 years at GE. I don't remember him missing too many days.
Right.
And then he would come home, catch a nap, change, and he was out umpiring or refereeing all night. So he had a really good work ethic when it came to those things. So I got to say I carried those on with me.
Right, right. So after high school, did you play college or anything like that?
I was fortunate. I was able to go to Chowan at the time. Chowan's a small school. It's a D2 school now in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. It was a junior college then. I went to Murfreesboro, North Carolina to play for Chowan Junior College.
Okay.
And it was attached to the University of North Carolina, something similar to what Barron is to Penn State.
Okay.
That, and it was really cool because we played East Carolina, University of North Carolina, NC State. We scrimmaged Duke. It was, you know, you played all of their freshmen and JV teams because back then freshmen weren't eligible to play varsity.
Right. So you had a
So
JV team.
it was you know, we got to travel a lot. I saw a lot of South, and it was a real cultural experience for me coming from the east side of Erie to North Carolina. What a shock it was in 1976 to see the differences in that.
Right, right, right. So after that,
Played a year there.
okay,
Stayed in school year, and came home and started looking for a job. Got hired at Hammer Mill.
okay,
Worked at Hammer Mill. Started playing for the Erie Express.
okay.
Played 5 years for the Erie Express.
Who were some of the people that you played with on that? You remember some of the guys? That you
Yeah,
played with?
David Green, who ended up playing for the Montreal Alouettes and played for the Browns and the Giants, and a lot of the kids I played high school football with. We had so much fun in high school playing football. I think we hadn't had enough yet.
Still want to play, right?
Still
right.
wanted to play, and you know, Kirk Loomis was our quarterback, and Alan Powell, who played at Vincent. We went to Roosevelt together. He went to Vincent. He was our fullback. David Green, as I said, Jim Hogan, Mark Dulesky, Jimmy Green, all these kids who I played high school ball
Right,
with.
right.
Bobby Hammer, Richard Pazzarotti, who ended up getting a short cup of coffee, I think, with the Cleveland Browns, came from the Express, and yeah, we had a really fun bunch of guys, and I sort of look at that as my college years, you know, working at Hammer Mill and playing ball.
Who was the coaches at Tech when you were there?
Ron Costello
Okay.
was the head coach. Jim Marnella was the line coach, and Chuck Villa was the running back coach. Danny DiTullio was our JV coach, along with Russ May.
Great, great.
Good guys.
Yeah, well-known names, right?
Yeah.
So, when did you decide, like, hey, I want to get into coaching, or when did you start coaching?
When I came home from Chowan, my wife ran into a friend of ours. We weren't married at the time, and they were looking for an offensive line coach at St. John's Grade School.
Oh, okay.
And Bobby Hoffman was the head varsity coach. John Birchtold and Bill Scholes were the JV coaches. And so I coached JV football with them. It was John Birchtold was head coach, Bill Scholes and I were the assistants. We coached 4th, 5th, and 6th graders at St. John's. That was my first coaching. I think I was 19.
How long did you stay there?
I was there for about 4 years, I think, maybe 4, maybe 5. And then I got hired at Academy High School as a JV coach, Danny DiTullio.
Okay.
And Tim Cashone and I were the JV coaches, and we had an undefeated season. And according to Jack Polanski back then, it was the first undefeated season since the 40s. It was a big year. It was a big deal for us. We beat Prep twice, beat McDowell twice.
Right, right.
You know, we had a really good team and went undefeated. And you know, all the years that I've coached, I've been involved with 3 undefeated teams, and I can remember those like
Right.
It doesn't happen much.
Right. Do you remember any of the kids from that team?
Oh yeah, Eric Sedgy was our quarterback. Groovy the Ghost, Gary Williams was outside linebacker. He was a tremendous athlete at the time. We were loaded.
Huh?
Johnny Marska, who's the he was a head college coach now. Steve Manusco was a tackle, and they both played a national championship team at Allegheny.
Right.
We had a really
That's some good
team.
players.
Yeah.
Where'd you go from there? From the team?
I got hired in Ronnie Costello after this. There was a C rule thing happening at the time, and there were coaches coming and going and asked to leave. And so Ron Costello asked me if I wanted to come back and coach at Tech, and I did. And I went back and coached with them, and what a staff that was with Ron and Jim Arnella, Joe Buffalino, Jeff Shaw, Ronnie Natupski, myself. We had an unbelievable staff there, and I coached there for a few years. And then got asked by Miller George to come down and be the offensive line coach and the defensive coordinator at Prep.
Okay. What year was that about?
Oh, I think it was 85. I think it was. Never actually got on the field. What happened, I got hired like in January at Prep. And I then got a call from Mercyhurst College.
So that's when you went to college?
And then I went to college that summer.
Okay.
And got hired at the college level, and then coached at the college level for about the next, I'm going to say 13 or 14 years.
Okay. Let's go back to the Tech team in World Costello. Do you remember any guys that played for that team? Any names?
Yeah, we were really good. We were 8-1. It was the first champion. It was the first time we had beaten Prep. We beat them, I think, 14-0. It was the first time since 1963, I think, that Tech had beaten Prep.
Wow.
And it was the first time since the 40s that we were the city champs. So it was huge.
It was a big year, yeah.
It was a big year. And I was very, very fortunate, Mo, to be on a team with those kind of guys. It was a team of all-stars. Every position was loaded. And, we were led by our quarterback, Kirk Loomis. And, his brother Greg was in the backfield, Charles Blanks. I think there were like 7 of us that went to play college football, I think, out of that. Bobby Hammer went to University of North Carolina and played. Jimmy Hogan was our defensive end and tight end. Jeff Dolak was on that team, Jeff Crumbly. They were just I was fortunate to be on that team with those guys. That's the way I look. They were the stars. Kirk Loomis was the motor of the team. And Jim Hogan gave us the swagger of the team.
Right.
We thought and acted the way we did. Jim had a lot to do with that. Kirk was a playmaker. He was all city linebacker. I think he weighed 140 pounds. 145.
Tough kid, huh?
Oh, he was. And he threw the javelin like 2'7", 210.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
athlete.
A tremendous athlete. Yeah. Could have played any sport. I think he was really, really good. And I happened. That was the beauty of it. None of it was scripted. Right. We all went to Tech in 9th grade. We went undefeated in 10th grade. And then we have this tremendous team as seniors. Nobody's scripted any of it.
Right.
Like my dad didn't drop me off and say, "Oh, they're going to be good in a few years. You should go here."
Right.
It just happened.
It happened, right.
And that's the greatest part about it to me. And we were from all over the city of Erie.
Right. Coming together.
It's funny, my 2 sons played for me at Fairview, and they thought it was weird that I met kids at Save and I practice that I never knew before. And they thought it was weird that I didn't know the kids at Vincent. I didn't know the kids at Prep. I knew some of the kids at Academy I knew some of the kids at East because our district, was where I lived.
Right.
But we just didn't. You didn't go outside your neighborhood.
Yeah, back in the day, Erie was really kind of like
splits.
Yeah, you didn't know the guys on the west side or that side. And,
and then there was the east side and west side Little League baseball. So you knew a lot of kids from Little League baseball, but you didn't cross state.
You didn't
Street.
cross over, right.
You go. Those kids were all different, and we were from all over on that Tech team, and we were good. We lost one game, 14-13.
So college, what? You coached at Mercyhurst. Where are some places you coached in college?
Well, I coached at Mercyhurst, and I was there 2 or 3 years, and Gannon started a program. And at the time, I wanted to get out of Hammermill and try to figure out a way. I wanted to be able to finish my degree. I started taking classes at Mercyhurst and was coaching, working. Had one little one at the time and was, taking classes, doing all of those things. And I wanted to become a college coach. And so the opportunity arose, and Tom Herman gave me a call. And I got hired as a full-time coach at Gannon, and left Hammermill after 12 years and started that avenue, and then was at Gannon for 10 years. I was the defensive coordinator there.
Right. What's the big difference between college and high school coaching, would you say?
Not all the kids that you coach in high school want to play college football, or some of them you're not even sure they want to play high school football with the commitment.
Right.
Sometimes you can tell you ask anything more of them, and they're not willing to do that.
Right.
And so it's a happy medium that you have to find coaching. College, the majority of them want to be there, and they want to be good. So they're willing to put in extra work, and they want to get playing time. They want to get on the field. They want to get on the bus.
Right.
On away games, and they want to go. And it was just fun watching that age of a young man develop with their academics, and they were serious about school because, it just wasn't that you're ineligible. You weren't going to be asked back.
Right,
Right. And I remember those were tough lessons for my sons to see because they had favorite players. Of course they did. They were hanging out.
Right.
And they'd go, where's Bobby? Well, he didn't go to class. So they told him he can't come anymore. And it was like,
right.
This really happens? I mean, they told him he's not, it was like, I think a bit of a culture shock for them to realize that.
Right.
And then, it was also the ones who were academically strong. I remember taking my sons to watch them and some of our players in our LTC get their lieutenant's pins pinned on them at their ceremony at graduation, which were all really, really cool.
Right.
And those guys were like heroes to my sons. They were intelligent, worked hard, good students, great guys. Of course, there were some meatheads involved in all of that, but sometimes they're funny also. So, it was a great mix. We had a great group of guys at Mercyhurst, great group of guys again. Really did.
Right. So I know you were the head coach at Fairview too. Talk about your time at Fairview.
Well, I was at Gannon. I finished my degree. I'd been there 10 years, and I got hired by the Erie School District, and that's when you and I coached 1 year together.
Right.
At
Central.
At Central. Then I get a phone call from Fairview saying they have a coaching opening, and a guy named Ed Dalton, a local coach from Erie, had given them my name. So Mike Hassey, who was the assistant principal at the time, called me. I went out, interviewed, ended up getting the job, and went from there. And I think, the coach there for, 11 years.
Okay.
When I got hired, what a tradition they had with Jack Bestwick. They were the king of the county for years and years, and Coach Bestwick had done a great job. Coach Bestwick was doing things the years that I were in high school that we were not. They were doing calls on the line between the tackles and the fullback and the quarterback and the center, that nobody.
He was ahead of everybody else.
Oh, really ahead of himself. Really, really smart coach. Really, really good coach. Math teacher. But they had fallen on some hard times, and they had only won 3 games in 4 years. And when I took over, I think that we had 21 kids on the team, 9 through 12.
Right.
So it was tough going.
How'd you get it going?
Boy, started with the middle school. Had to get a great middle school coach, and I did with Jimmy Bringling. And had to start with those 5th and 6th and 7th graders. Start the little kids camp. Got all those kids as my ball boys, and had them on the sideline with us all the time. They were with us, and just started doing what Ron Costello, always talked about, and that's blocking and tackling. That if you can block and tackle, chances are you hang on to the ball, you're gonna be in the game at the end of the game.
Happen. Right.
So that's what we were about. I wanted to run double reverse trick plays, but we didn't know how to block and we didn't know how to tackle.
Right.
And then when you learn that, what you realize is it doesn't matter what you run. if you can out block them and out tackle them,
it's going to work, right?
It's going to work.
Right.
You know, it's easy to call plays then. You know, when the offensive line's blocking, anything works. And when they're not blocking,
no matter what you run,
nothing's going to work. You can't hide that. You can't. You can't do it with smoke and mirrors.
No. So what's the difference between because growing up in Erie, you and I both grew up in Erie, 5 different schools.
Right.
What's the difference between now you're going to a place like Fairview and there's one school, everybody's kind of geared to that? What's the differences?
Well, first of all, you can control what's happening in your program from elementary school on. You know, you see the kids coming through. The community support's unbelievable. You know, Fairview didn't have a downtown area. They really didn't have a meeting place where they got most of the residents together at one time with Friday night home football games, which were really cool. The traditions that they had there with homecoming, the rivalries with Girard. You know, we had rivalries in the city, but it just wasn't the same. No, we had, when I was growing up, that Metro League that we had, I feel really bad at times that the kids today don't have that. You know, when there was East Academy, Vincent Tech, Prep, McDowell, what a league that was. Right. And there was games in the stadium.
Rivalries, right.
Yeah.
People looking forward to it.
You know, it was a lot of fun. But it was different when the whole community was behind you like it was at Fairview. When, we had to build a concession stand, the whole community came together and did it. It was really fun to see. It was, I guess it was, like small town America, which, maybe like the 50s or whatever, that people, as you and I were saying earlier, we would go play like Corey, we'd play Northeast. And the whole downtown, when we pulled into town, was the beat Fairview and signs were up, and it was like, you didn't see much of that when we would take the bus. And yes, we used to take the bus from Tech to the stadium for home games. Right. But you didn't see all that stuff.
Right. It's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Any teams, moments, players, anything that sticks out to you, like you think about, like, man, I remember this, anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, for the players, the undefeated seasons were great, and we had a few of those, and I was fortunate to be involved with them. Big wins, like at Fairview, went down and played Steubenville, and they had a 10,000 seat stadium. There were probably 8,000 people there.
Wow.
They have a Jumbotron. And their scoreboard.
Big deal, big time, yeah.
And here we are, little Fairview. We were going down there. I think they were ranked number 1 in the state at the time at their level.
Right.
It was a good game. I think we lost 32-12, but we were in there. We made a couple really mental mistakes that it could have been even closer. That was a memorable game.
Right.
Those kids, just getting them not to look at the Jumbotron. They were no huddling us, and we're trying to signal the linebackers, and they're looking at the Jumbotron.
And all of that.
You got to look at us, and they're like, "Coach, it's like a car wreck. I can't look away." That was, funny times like that. But that was fun doing that, and getting on the bus and going someplace and playing was fun. That was something that they hadn't done a lot of at Fairview,
right.
And something that I wanted to do. Then that comes from Ron Costello. We used to get on the bus and go play people. And, I did not play. I coached it, though. We would go play Cleveland St. Ed's, and we played Youngstown South, and we would play Akron St. Vincent St. Mary, and, good teams.
Right.
And, that's what we went and did in the city.
Right.
And I wanted to take that kind of philosophy out to Fairview when I was there, and we did. We went and played some people.
Right. So when I was talking to people about doing this interview, a lot of people mentioned great coach. Like, he's a great coach. Learned a lot from him. His intensity. Like, where does that come from? I can tell you, I can just tell sitting here.
I myself was an athlete that needed a lot of coaching. I'm a sequential person. I'm an offensive lineman. I need to know the count. I need to know if it's a run pass. I need to know if it's right, left. And then I need to know who to block. So I took that same attitude into the coaching of it. And I had a very good line coach in high school, Jim Marnella, who was very sequential himself, and he was able to teach us in those ways and helped us, become better players. It was the same thing when I went to college. I had a really good offensive line coach in college, and I used their methods into the way I taught. And then there was Joe Moore, and I learned a lot from Joe Moore. I was very fortunate. Living in Erie, we were so close to many colleges that had open arms that would allow us to come and visit. I mean, look in a 4-hour, you draw a 4-hour circle around Erie. I mean, you got Michigan, Syracuse, Pitt, Penn State, all of West Virginia, all of these schools, and you go there and you could learn from these college coaches. And I think that was a big movement on why I wanted to become a college coach. I would watch them and see the things that they were doing. But it was the teaching part of getting the kids in positions that they could be successful. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted them to be successful and be the best that they could, and push them and try to teach them on how to, engage blocks, and then of course how to disengage from blocks on defense and get to the football. So, there was a lot of basic fundamental step-by-step ways of teaching.
Okay. So when you look, any cool coaching stories you want to share? I mean, anything?
I don't know. There's so many. I don't know if it's appropriate for here. A lot of stories from the great guys. The 10 years at Gannon. A lot of memories there. Starting a college program from scratch is a book all in itself. Right. I look back at that and what Tom Herman did there, and we all did there. The recruiting was easier because it was honest. Mo, you're going to play. Of course, we don't have a team. We're starting off, right. You're going to play. Right. So recruiting was easy. Scheduling was hard. And the president of Gannon at the time, we were starting a program in January or February. I never got hired until July. We were playing that fall season. So getting ready for that, with bringing all those kids together at training camp and getting them used to playing college football, that was hard.
Right. What are you most proud of when you look back at your coaching career?
The successes of the kids. We had to see the guys at Mercyhurst and Gannon living these very successful lives, doing well. Very proud of the fact that we were able to turn the program around at Fairview. We had one season we didn't win a game. That I wish I could get that out of my mind. But I think more about that and the things I could have done better that year than the seasons that we went undefeated.
Right. Yep, that's how it is, right?
I just, just the way your mind works. I have to be reminded sometimes that we went undefeated. I'd never need anybody to remind me we didn't win a game that year.
Right.
And it was brutal. And it was 2-point games, 1-point games.
Close stuff.
Which I knew we were there, but it was, we needed to win to get numbers out, and we needed numbers out to win.
They work together.
So it was a catch-22. It started with the middle school, started with the weight room, started with T-shirts, all of those things to try to get
your morale and all that stuff up.
It's easier. I must say, I think it was easier starting a program at Gannon than it was turning the program around at Fairview.
Wow.
Changing people's attitudes harder than building one from the beginning.
Something that's been down for a while. As opposed to
they didn't want to change, and I was saying things like, okay, this is the way you've always done things, and what's the outcomes?
Right.
Well, the outcomes aren't good, so things have to change.
Right.
And one of the biggest things that we did, and I guess this is a story for you, the first year we had 2-a-days at Fairview. The second day, a lot of kids didn't show up. And I went and knocked on doors. What John Bergstoldt, who was my assistant, run practice, and my youngest son Jake and I jumped in the car. I couldn't leave him there, so he went with me knocking on doors. Where's Bobby? He's sore. So I told him if he's that sore, he shouldn't get out of bed. And I'm like, man, this football camp, this is so. I came up with what Ron Costello did for us. I was never in the military. the closest I came to it was Ron Costello and that staff taking us away to football camp, where we were regimented, lived in sort of like barracks.
Right.
You know, you had to eat what people fed you. You had to take care of your clothes. You know, all of those things. There was no moms or dads there to help you. You had to get along with everybody on the team. It was stressful mentally, physically. So I decided we need to go to football camp. So I didn't have the means at the time, so I went down to the reserves, 10th and Gilson. I don't know if you remember behind Carpet Town, there used to be Army reserves there. Well, when we were real little kids, there was a roller rink there. We used to go to roller skating parties at Burton there.
Right.
And then they made it a reserve unit.
Yep, I remember that.
So I remember knocking on the door and asking the guy, I want to have football camp. Can I borrow a tent and 50 cots? And they loaned them to me.
Wow.
So in the end zone, the north end zone of the Fairview Stadium, we put up 2 tents.
And you had the kids sleep out there.
And we had the cots, and I locked the doors at night. We had it catered. Dr. Craig Costello, Bobby Ferrando, Chico's in Fairview, all of those people then would donate meals. So they were catered dinners at night. I raised the money, bought stuff for cereal and milk.
For breakfast, right.
Middlebrook at the time donated milk to all of us. And then the boosters took care of lunch. And so we would practice and then sleep in the stadium in the tents.
Wow, that's a good story. Yeah.
That was the first year. And it was funny because we scrimmaged east, I think. Maybe Vincent it was. Vincent. And they come out and all the kids were like, what? I said, that's where we, they thought that was hilarious. And Cashone was the head coach, and I think Dahlstrand was his assistant before he went to East.
Okay.
And they all thought that was a hoot. And I changed, we locked the fence at night and we stayed out there right with the kids.
Right.
Yeah, that was our first year. And then after that, we went to WLD Ranch every year. We went away. At first, I had to go to the school board to convince them that this was okay.
This is what you need, yeah.
And then after we had it rolling, if I decided not to go to camp, I think I would have had to go to the board and explain to them why
you're not going.
We fed them big time. We had a great time at camp. Thursday nights, the dads donated steaks. We had corn on the cob and steaks. There was a pool at WLD Ranch, so, we wanted to cool the kids down at night. Malcolm Bell was our strength and conditioning coach, and we'd get all the kids in the pool. We watched film at night. Everybody would go to bed at 10 o'clock. I collected all cell phones, and we got a lot done. And that was huge, I believe, in building that program.
Anything, you satisfied with everything with your career? Would you say?
I could have done a better job.
Wish you want more?
I look at some of the games back that we had at Fairview, and I wish we would have done this differently. Would have done mostly personnel changes. I should have moved this kid over here and this kid there. Now looking back at it, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you get caught up, and it's hard to be objective and taking this outside look. I don't. I wish I could change some things. I wish, that maybe played a tougher schedule here and there. I don't know. Hard to say. But I got to say I enjoyed it immensely.
Right.
And, coaching for me wasn't something I could just dip my toe in. You
were in it full when you were in it.
And that's the only way I think you could do it. And that's why even today, people say, you think about, because I just can't.
You can't do it
for a half hour a day. Now I still have guys that I coach that are head coaches that I still work on with our 3-4 defense, and help them out with those things and explain things that we did with gap control and line twists and all the stuff that we did for years and did again. And I keep my finger in it that way. But being a college coach was so much fun because the pros allowed you in. We would go to training camps and they allowed us in all the time and total access, especially the Steelers.
Right.
Just total access, and you could get in there and learn what they were doing and sit in their meetings. And listen to them evaluate film and players, and it was such that learning curve. I'm a big fan of Eric Clapton, and he talks about a 10,000 hour rule. That it took him 10,000 hours to become the guitarist that he is, and I think that's true in a lot of the professions that we take. And that 10 years, those years, that's when I really
Became the coach that you are.
yeah, learning.
Right,
and,
right.
And, you know, the thing that I loved about it, and you know, coaches back then, when they made it, they threw the ladder down to you. Come on up.
They were ruling
you know,
out,
learn,
ruling out.
check this out.
Yeah,
Look
yeah.
at what we're doing here. And then there got to be a change in my last years of college coaching, that when they got up there, they pulled the ladder up behind them. And they didn't want to share anymore. And when I would run into older coaches, they were really amazed on, we don't understand why that's happening, because none of us would be here. And to sit down and listen to Chuck Knoll talk about the tree that he came from on the West Coast with staffs, what he's on with Shula and Madden, and it's like just unbelievable.
Yeah, they all shared with each other. Tried to help
I think
each
they
other.
were all under Coryell for a while.
Okay.
You know,
Great
and
stuff.
it was just amazing.
Right. So right now, if you had all the guys, think back to St. John's when you first started, all the way to Fairview. All those kids are sitting in front of you right now, all the coaches that work with you. What would you say to them?
Still having fun? Are we having fun? If not, why aren't we? Let's you know, this is all about having fun. Yeah, there's work we got to do. You guys know that. Let's have some fun.
Right.
And that's you know, this is a game. It used to bother me when I'd hear coaches say it's like going to war. No. My dad was in a war. He told me about it. That didn't sound like any fun. You know, this ain't a war. This is a game. So let's have fun.
Right.
There's some necessary evils we got to do, but you know, hey, we tried the best we could. We tried to have some fun while we were doing it. Nothing personal. You know, if I got after you, I got after number 53, not the person really underneath it.
Right.
Just the player.
Right.
You know, we had a big rule, and I got that rule from Tom Herman, and I took it with me. You can rip a kid all you want at practice, but the rule was, before you left that day, you had to go talk to him in the locker room. And just express the fact that I'm getting after you as a player, not a person.
Right.
Love you as a person.
Right. It's not personal.
Get upset with you sometimes as a player. Hope they understand that.
Right. Coaching your own kids, what's that like?
They made it easy for me because they were good players. You know, I didn't have to, you know, worry about it. So they understood what getting in the weight room was about. They understood getting after you because they grew up.
They grew up with you, right?
They grew up on the
Right,
Gannon
right.
practice.
Right. Seeing it their whole life.
So that's what they expected. Like if you didn't get after it, or get after them, they thought something maybe was wrong. You know, that's just the way it is. You got to hustle and work and get to the ball and, you know, nothing. And so they made it easy for me. My wife made the rule, and it was a really good rule, that we didn't talk football once we got home.
Once you got home.
So we didn't. And they made it easy for me. And I was a coach before I was a parent. You know, so many times as an AD, I would see parents that became coaches out of need or out of want with their children. Well, there's a difference. You know, my children knew I was a coach.
Right.
And they knew, you know, how much those kids meant to me and how important coaching was to me and the expectations of players.
Right.
And what they were supposed to do.
Right.
Jeremy started playing, my oldest started playing at St. George's, and I dropped him off at practice and I went home. I didn't want to be there. I was the defensive coordinator. And enough people knew that. So I pick him up and I said, well, how was it? He says, Dad, we ran one defense. They don't script practice, and there was no pass skelly. And I said, you're in fifth grade. You don't. That's not going to happen to you for a while. So don't even mention that kind of stuff. I had a lot of fun telling that story a whole lot of times because that's what he
knew it, right? He knew what it was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to keep them busy at practice, I would give them scripts.
Right.
So they would signal to, you know how it goes in college. You're repping constantly.
Right.
It's all about reps. And so at times you're making corrections and no one's signaling into the linebackers the next defense and the offense is breaking the huddle. So I gave scripts and they would signal to the linebackers while we were making corrections as coaches. So they would follow script and they would signal in.
Right.
So that it ended up helping us. They knew all the signals.
They knew all that stuff, right? They're
Yeah,
just
so
like
after
coaches.
the game, he'd say, "Dad, you ran a lot of that." And I'd be like, "How'd you know that?" He goes, "Well, I was just watching them signal in."
What was your philosophy as AD? What was it once you became AD? What was, just tell me what that was like.
I wanted to get the best people possible. The best people as coaches. I wanted people who wanted to win, good people that cared about the kids. And then we used the same philosophy that the school did about teachers. Lesson plans. I used to say to them, when I come to evaluate you, first of all, I'm going to walk in your gym. Don't stop what you're doing. I love the process of watching coaches coach. I love the process. I love it. You know, I remember going to see Bill Flaherty coach. It was something to see, to watch him. I used terminology from him in my practice. Bob Duquette was the same way at Gannon. I'd go watch their basketball practice and take things from him that I used in football. They were unbelievable teachers. And when I come in your gym and I'm watching, don't stop what you're doing. I'm just watching you. Right. But there's a couple things that I want. I want to see your practice plan. I want to see your lesson plans. And the school board was always after us to get how you evaluate them. I'm going to evaluate them the same way you evaluate the teachers. I'm not reinventing the wheel.
Right.
You already got it down pat.
Right.
So I'm going to do the same thing and hold them to those accountable things.
Right.
You know, I don't want to see coaches that don't have a lesson plan, because then practice isn't organized.
Right.
You know, really had to work hard with them over all the different changes in media and how they're getting information out to the kids and how much they're using cell phones with kids and all of those things. That was a big change. Tried to get them to schedule as tough opponents as we could get.
Right.
Because what you know, that's going to make you better.
Right. Right.
Don't be afraid to get on a bus and go someplace. You're good. Let's go play good people.
You gotta believe that. Right. Right.
And you know, have that kind of fun, and then support them with equipment. Fairview was really good. We had a full-time trainer. They listened to me in that we hired Malcolm Bell as a strength coach for the high school. And Mo, that was huge.
Right.
I mean, it was like college. You had a strength coach.
Right.
So the girls' basketball coach could go to Malcolm and say, you know, I want a program in the summer. And Malcolm would run the program, and the coach didn't have to be there.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
And we were able to pay Malcolm for that, you know, and it was a really great system that we had. And so I tried to get the coaches not to have to be there as much as they, you know, the weight room time.
Right, that kind of stuff. Right.
And to work on the things they needed, helped them out with equipment as much, got them good schedules, and then expected them to be good coaches and to work hard at it.
Right.
And there were tough times. There were times when you'd have to come in and have serious conversations and keep it professional, and we remained friends. There was not any animosity in any situations that I had out there. We were able to work things
You
through.
want success. Right.
Yeah, and so do the parents, and the kids are number one.
Right. Anything else you want to share today with the before we wrap up?
I think this is great what you're doing. I really do. There's a lot of kids like you and I that have come through this public schools in Erie and played sports, and were coached by great guys, and they don't get enough recognition. And you know, you played with enough kids you played at Teal. You know that there were tough kids in Erie that you played with and against that people shouldn't forget their names. And I think it's really good that you're doing that, and I want to commend you for that, and keep on keeping on.
Right. Thanks, Coach. I really appreciate you being here today. Always good talking to you. Thanks for your time and all you've done for the community and the kids.
Thanks.
Once again, this was Coach Jerry Lightner today, longtime head coach and assistant and AD in the Erie area, both at the college and high school level. Thanks, Coach.